Well, hello, lovely listeners, and welcome viewers. I've got something a little different today. As you can see, I haven't got my usual backdrop. I have a lodge in my garden, which has got multiple purposes. But as you can see behind me, it's not a working bar anymore, but we have a good few parties in here. And that sign says the Not So So Bar, which my son named it when he was 21. I digress. So the reason why we're in the lodge today, I have the wonderful Joy Warren with me. Now, Joy is actually my neighbour, and she lives, if I walk out of my house in 20 seconds, I'm at Joy's house. And we ran into each other a few weeks ago. She was doing a talk locally in Coventry about fluoride. And I remember looking at this woman thinking, I remember this woman on my road, and I went to see her about dirty water when I first moved in because she put a flyer through the door. And I remember sitting there listening to Joy thinking, I wonder if it's the same woman. And lo and behold, it was. So we talked about her coming on the podcast, what she's trying to do, and her and a lot of other people in terms of fluoride is just massive, very commendable, but we need more people. So welcome, Joy Warren, my neighbour and fluoride activist. It's amazing to have you.
Well, thank you so much for asking me onto your show.
Yeah, you're very welcome. As people that watch my show now, I have the guests on that are in the truth movement, betterment movement, call it whatever you want. People that are not afraid to speak out, people that are actually trying to do some good things in the world, and they're one of them. It's a no-brainer for me. So, Joy, we all love a bit of a backstory, and I don't know. She's just been giving me some history about the previous guy that owned this house and used to have a bird aviary apparently in my garden. But anyway, I would love to know. Viewers and listeners would love to know what was it that got you on this long journey of trying to get fluoride out of our drinking water.
Very long journey. Started in 2002. Got my degree in science, scouting around something to do with it. And suddenly lit on going to a meeting with the local friends of the earth. And there they had a medical doctor, Dr. Diane Philips, who was an anesthetologist, who'd come up from London to work at Walsgrave Hospital, as it was then. She became and nobody knew why, even though she was a doctor with colleagues who were doctors, nobody could diagnose it. Quite a few years before they decided that she had hypothyroidism. Then she suddenly realized that she'd got a smaller than average thyroid gland. And then she realized that she was in a fluoridated area. And she knew about the halogen theory of displacement, where the smaller halogens displace the larger ones, the larger elements. In which case, any fluoride she was taking into her body was displacing any iodide she had in her body, which would have been absolutely useful for her thyroid gland, essential in fact. So that was the case. She decided to get herself diagnosed by going off to Canada to a guy called Andreas Schultz, who was an expert on fluoride antagonism. And he confirmed the fact that she had got hypothyroidism brought on by overexposure to fluoride in her diet. When she came back, she got herself a whole house filtration system. So all her water was completely filtered, all the fluoride was removed. And she got better. I think she even returned to work. And then when she replaced her filter one day, they'd sent her the wrong ones, which didn't remove fluoride. And she became ill again. Now, this is a classic way of challenging an allergy or whatever to see whether, in fact, that was the actual causative agent. And so it was. The upshot was that she came round to Pennsylvania. She gave a few talks. I wasn't convinced at the time. Why would anybody be putting to a jury? And it took me a whole year to read up on it. And then I finally become convinced. And that was just solid hooked. I found my vocation, basically.
No, no, no. How long ago was that then, Joy?
2003.
2003. Um, so that was over 20 years ago. So that's when it started.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what were you doing up to that point? What was, did you have a day job and all of that?
Oh, yes.
What were you doing?
I was between 2003 and 2010, I was a PA to a director at the University of Warwick.
Hmm.
Then 2 or 3 years before I took retirement at 60, I was recycling programs coordinator at the university. So I was using my degree, in a way, and I was using my degree by opposing fluoridation. Between 2003 and 10, I was a director of National Pure Water Association. But we weren't getting very far. I mean, they were a very strong organization. They had done an awful lot of good work, but we just couldn't seem to get the government to listen to anything we wanted to say. And now I realize why not. But it's taken so many years to get that realization. Between 2010 and 16, I ran West Midlands against fluoridation. And then between 17 and now, I'm the coordinator, special coordinator for the Fluoride Free Alliance UK.
Fluoride Free Alliance UK. Okay. So 2003, well, I moved in here 2005. So you were quite new into the journey then at that point.
Yes, yes.
And who would have thought it that we'd be sat here now? Um, so what does that journey look like? You got into it in 2003. Obviously, the overwhelming evidence for you made it a no-brainer. You were like, this is so harmful. So what did that look like next in terms of, you said obviously the government won't listen and you know why now. So we'll get into that in a bit, but what did that look like? What was a typical day or week or month for you trying to get this message out?
Oh, back to records, MPs, to the Department of Health, trying to out that. Um, I, I absolutely every it was admitting that fluoride in drinking water was, in a way, compulsory medicine, most certainly is compulsory medicine, and therefore violates our human rights. But tell them that. No, 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 it's not a medicine. But what is it? Oh, it's a public health measure. Excuse me, I can't drink a public health measure. We're talking about something that's tangible here, liquid elements, toxins. Oh, no, 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 it's a public health measure. And besides, it's permitted by law, so you can't do anything about it.
Mm.
So finally, the realization came a couple of years ago, and I've got some very strong colleagues in London now. We have the only way we can get around this argument that it's permissible in law is to take the government to court.
Okay. So strong actions indeed, and I'm now quite well versed in courts myself, and it's challenging. We know that the law, or the law that we believe, the constitutional law, common law, basic human rights, doesn't seem to be being upheld in any area of life at the moment, whether that be health, water, taxes, finance, you name it. As far as I'm concerned, and a lot of people are concerned, we're being screwed at every level. So you had this realization a couple of years ago about the government. But before we get on to that, why is fluoride so bad? What is fluoride?
All right. It's a derivative of fluorine gas. Fluorine gas is deadly, but you never encounter it in life because it lives deep, deep down in the bedrock. Well, as soon as it formed, and I have no idea how it forms, but it just does, it becomes part of another element. So it forms a compound because it's so reactive. It can't survive on its own. So you have calcium down below, you have fluorine gas, and they meet each other just like that. You just cannot pull them apart. And that way, that locks in the gas and makes it less deadly. So
Right.
if it was to seep up through the rock, it would kill everybody because as I say, it's just asphyxiating completely.
Wow.
So if you have, so fluoride should stay down there and not be released into the atmosphere. However, man has decided that the rock in which it is found is valuable for its phosphate. And so they dig it all up, and sometimes it's actually lying around on the surface in the bench mines. You can just you don't have to go underground. You just basically start, yeah, and it's locked. The fluoride's locked into it, so they just basically take out all the rock they can. They pulverize it with boiling sulfuric acid and extract the extract the phosphate. But then the rest is waste, and it's hazardous waste because it's got the fluoride in it, but it's also got several heavy metals which are also in the rock itself. And that is what ends up in the hexafluorosilicic acid, which is a hazardous waste product of phosphate fertilizer manufacturing.
Okay.
We don't manufacture it in this country, even though we do have some deposits of phosphate rock, but it's not economical to do so because there's such small areas. The hexafluorosilicic acid, as I say, is basically added to contaminated water because it's regarded at its origin as waste. You don't need to have purified water. Why would you waste money on purified water? They stick it into tankers. Now, they would normally be regarded as waste. It would be neutralized at a great cost to the phosphate manufacturers. But they don't do that because why? Why waste money when you can sell it as it is and is no longer waste? Because once it's sold, it's okay, it's desirable. It's no longer a waste. So where it comes to us at the moment is from the Negev desert in southern Israel. It's nothing to do with the Israeli government. It's just pure commercialism. It comes across the Mediterranean, up the Bay of Biscay, and ends up in Tilbury Docks in London. And from there, it's road tankered throughout the country to the 10% of the people who are fluoridated.
Okay.
Right, so there we don't know when it's tested for purity. Well, how can anything be pure when it's got heavy metals in it? But each heavy metal should be below a certain maximum allowable.
So just to just pause that for a minute, who and why did fluoride become a thing for healthy teeth?
Big con back in the 1940s. The aluminium smelting companies also needed to get shot of its fluoride waste. And again, it was going to cost a lot of money to neutralize it. And the guy in charge of the American Aluminium Company, Alcoa, had friends in high places in government. And he also knew scientists and researchers. And they finally hit on a scheme. It didn't actually coalesce immediately. It took a long time, a few years for them to sort of work their way through this thing until somebody said, well, you've got to get rid of this waste. If we send it to the sea, it's not legal. We've got to get rid of it somehow. You don't want to spend money neutralizing it. So how about drip, 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 dripping it into drinking water? Oh, they all said. No, you can't do that. Yes, you can. Nobody's going to see it there. It's going to be tiny amounts. And you will eventually get rid of it. Send it to all the water treatment companies in America and get it through the drinking water. It'll end up eventually in the sea anyway. So what? And they did that. They started a few trials in America, 10 years long, for example. They lasted 5 years. They said, oh, no, we don't have to do any more trials. It's working. It's wonderful. It's reducing dental decay because we know it does that sort of thing.
And they knew it did that sort of thing. How?
Well, because of Texas teeth. If you ever saw pictures of people back in the 40s from Texas, black and white, and they opened their mouths, you could see their teeth were really brown stained. And it wasn't from chewing tobacco or anything like that. It was a case of they got dental fluorosis. But did you know dental fluorosis stops enamel erosion, which is really counterintuitive because dental fluorosis is enamel erosion.
Right.
But it was a big con right from the beginning, just to save the industry from having to
Money.
spend up lots of money.
Sound familiar? Anyone? Um, it reminds me of have you seen, I don't know whether you watch much telly, Joy, do you? Do you watch Netflix at all?
No.
Um, well, it wasn't on Netflix originally. It was probably on ITV or BBC or something, but it was based on a true story of Corby and the waste that was going on down there. And it was really good. It was a really good watch. And basically, there was a big company there that was creating a lot of toxic waste, and they were not doing their safety regulations. So there was trucks and trucks of this stuff being shipped all over Corby and the surrounding area, and it wasn't being held down with covers or anything. So this dust was just going everywhere. And then a lot of women that were pregnant at the time, they ended up having deformed children that didn't have arms, didn't have, there was one particular story where the baby died within days. None of the organs were functioning and all of that sort of stuff. And it took them 14 years to get recognition and compensation um, for obviously what they've been through. But it was the council, it was Corby Council, that was doing a massive cover up. And obviously taking backhanders, as we know. So, yes, so we know that obviously corporations and so-called government bodies don't seem to have the people's best interest at heart when it comes to safety and health. So, okay, so they basically saved a load of money, created this toxic substance, and then decided to put it into our drinking water. Hmm.
Yes, even worse than deliberately allowing it to blow upwind
Yeah.
or downwind, in fact. I'm not quite sure which communities are downwind of Corby. What happens sometimes is that to keep people quiet, if there's likely to be a hoo-ha, they fluoridate them. For example, West Cumbria, the sea towns, the area above Sellafield is fluoridated. And the government's absolutely determined to keep the fluoride in the water there, just to keep the people quiet. And oh, yes, they are quiet, all right.
So I remember trying to have a conversation and an email with Severn Trent about fluoridation, and all you get is well, it's the government tell us to do it, so we have to do it.
Yes.
There's no thinking, there's no oh, let's take this concern seriously. Have you, presumably Severn Trent is the local water for this area. Have you spoken with Severn Trent?
Several times over the years.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And my final, how can I say, lunge at them is the fact that I'm not paying my drinking water charges because it's not drinking water, it's medicine. Oh, okay. And this is medicine. You're not selling me drinking water, and your license really is there to sell people drinking water. So I'm not paying for it because you're violating your license, and you're also trying to tell me that it's good for me. Have you seen their envelopes? A little motto on the bottom: "Wonderful on tap." It's anything but wonderful on tap. I mean, if you ignore the chlorine, because that has to be there because that kills pathogens. But the water you're drinking has got so many different chemicals in it. Industry chemicals, agriculture chemicals, natural chemicals, and the fluoride added in this area. I don't want to have a soup of chemicals in my drinking water because I know that's going to cause me problems over the years because it bioaccumulates and it causes chronic ill health. Now, I've avoided since 2003, and I wasn't fluoridated between the year of my birth and 1977 when it was added to our water here in
Is
Coventry.
that when it was, right?
Yeah. So it's only just 20 years that I was fluoridated. And in those years, I had eczema. And I couldn't work out why. As soon as I stopped drinking the water, the eczema healed up. And it wasn't contact eczema. As far as I could see, fluoride leaves the body in three ways. It comes through the urine, the poo, and the skin. So if you're trying to excrete it through the skin, because the skin in your body is not so thick, it's fine, it comes out. But your skin on your hands is really thick. And therefore it got trapped in the skin and set up inflammation. And that's what caused my eczema. I was using rubber gloves when I was doing the washing up, so it wasn't contact, as it were. And clearly, you try and not have anything with SLS in it to allow anything to be absorbed through the skin if you can help it, like soap without SLS. So the eczema healed up, and after 2003, not a sign of it.
Amazing.
And that's why I lost my train of thought now.
Well, we were talking about Severn Trent
Oh yes, okay, right.
and their response.
Their response, indeed. Um, their response is template letters, trite paragraphs which say nothing, mean nothing, apart from the fact they say, well, we've got to do it because the government says we have to do it according to the Water Industry Act 1991, Section 87 et sec. So they have to do it. But there's no reason why we shouldn't prick their conscience. It's good. It's fun anyway doing it. You've got to have some sort of battering ram to aim at.
Yeah,
Sorry, not to aim at. To actually, you have to be able to have a go at something just to keep yourself going spiritually.
yeah. And I think there are a lot more people now on the same wagon as you than there were 20 years ago when you first started this, for sure. When you came and did that talk, there was a lot of interested people in that room. And you could say, okay, well, yeah, you're all like-minded weirdos, conspiracy theorists, call us what you will. But it's not that at all. It's basically people that give a shit about not being poisoned from every single angle in life. That's food, water, pharmaceuticals, the air. I mean, we've actually got blue skies and sunshine today, which is a rarity, and has been a rarity for months and months, right? So it's actually very nice out in the garden today. Um, but yeah, simply put, when you start this, and it is a spiritual journey as well, you can't unknow what you've discovered, and it becomes an inner knowing. It's like it's a truth. And people say, "Oh no, you're crazy," how do you know? And you say, because once you've gone down one rabbit hole, you go down usually lots. And you realize everything you've ever been taught and told is an absolute lie, and it's all been inverted. Why has it been inverted? It's been inverted because governments and corporations, their god is money, and they've all been promised a seat on whatever special table it is, whether that ever happens or not. And everybody's out for themselves. Now, I'm not saying everybody's a bad person. There are good people out there, obviously. But that's what happens when you're on this journey. And I know a lot of the audience that watch and listen anyway will resonate with all of that because they're on that journey. To go back to fluoridated water, I've been distilling water now. My awakening was 2020, like a lot of people's, with all the scandemic crap. And it wasn't too long before my son bought me a distiller, and so I've been drinking distilled water for the last four years or so. And it's horrible when you go out and about, isn't it, into a restaurant, because you know damn well that you're not getting, well, you're probably not getting clean water. But it's just things you have to put up with. So fluoride has been a big con. We've all been told that we needed it for healthy teeth. And in this day and age, because obviously that was a long time ago, they've got fluoride in the toothpaste. Not that I would have that. But so what's the argument now for them to keep the fluoride in, Joy? Because it's in toothpaste. So it doesn't need to be in the water.
Well, clearly they're looking at the little children whose parents do not clean their teeth for them.
Oh, those
Right.
naughty little children.
Well, no, the parents actually. But The government is acting very strangely, or should I say the establishment, because the establishment controls the government.
Absolutely.
Right, the establishment is very, very odd because they know darn well that the most recent UK government-sponsored research showed that there's only a reduction of 2 or 3% of dental decay in children who are fluoridated. And that is not a significant reduction. So there's no reason to insist on fluoridating an entire population. And it's so expensive for just possibly reducing decay by 2 or 3%. Now, the 2 to 3%, as far as I'm concerned, isn't a real reduction in decay. This is a very strange concept, but we know that from 1950s research, when there wasn't so much fluoride around, it was much easier to see this. The fluoride seems to reduce the eruption or delay the eruption of milk teeth. Now, the first tooth for a baby is 6 months in the normal situation. But in many cases, when they're fluoridated with baby formula made up of tap water, the tooth erupts much later, like 9 months, 10 months, even up to 14 months. It has not been unknown for a baby to have its first tooth at 14 months. Now, that means that when the children go to school and have their first dental examination at 5 years old, the fluoridate child's teeth are younger and have not been in the mouth for so long to become so decayed. And that is the reduction in decay. It's got nothing to do with fluoride going into the teeth, through the body, through the root canal, through the dentine, and through the developing enamel under the gum. That is, it's just not true. It's the actual delay in the eruption of teeth, which is seems to be reducing decay.
And this can all be backed up by proper research.
Yeah, I've got a whole list of this research on my website.
Yeah.
So that's it. There's no reason to do it. Now, we haven't actually ever said definitely to the establishment about this, but they just hoo-ha it. But if they actually took it on board, they have no grounds whatsoever to fluoridate anybody. But they're still determined to do it. And that's why the North East public consultation decision went against us. They're going to fluoridate 1.6 million people across the North East.
When was that?
The decision came out about 3 weeks ago.
And where was that again?
North East of England.
So you've put in your research and your reasons for why it shouldn't happen, and they've just roughshod it.
Yeah.
And their reasons were?
Oh, all the reasons you've given us in your responses to the public consultation have been voiced by you guys before, and we've already brushed them to one side, etc., etc. And we're not listening, and we're going to do it anyway.
That's pretty much what they said.
Paraphrasing it, yes.
So there wasn't, the reason why we're ignoring you is because it's proven that it is very healthy and it's this and it's that, and we need to do it.
They try and say that, but they can't prove it anymore because they've got this UK paid for, government paid for research, which it doesn't do what you want it to do. It also doesn't reduce oral health inequalities across social groups. Now, the Labour Party is really big on this. They want to reduce inequalities, but there's no proof that fluoridation helps to give poor kids rich kids' teeth. It doesn't work like that.
Is that what they're saying?
Yeah. That is what they want to say. They can't prove it, but they still keep saying it. So it's all pretty lot of lies, really.
And you said only 10% of the UK is fluoridated.
Well, it's not enough, is it? We have to be all fluoridated.
But I thought it was more than that. I thought it was more than 10%.
6 million people.
Okay.
Including you and me.
Unfortunately, we're in one of those areas.
Yeah.
Fluoride is also known to calcify the pineal gland.
Correct.
Yeah.
The pineal gland also has calcium anyway, but when fluoride is attracted to calcium, remember what I said about fluoride and calcium down below in the bedrock? Same thing. So your pineal gland's rather like bedrock. By the time it's finished, it's definitely bedrock. The fluoride densifies the pineal gland, and therefore makes less room for melatonin to be produced. And that's bad news because you don't get sleep. And I think melatonin is also protective from breast cancer. And I feel so sorry for night on nurses on night shift. If they don't get that much sleep. And during the day, if they can't sleep uninterrupted, and they don't have the melatonin, they could possibly come down with cancers.
Right. So there are a lot of people, my mother included, um, who just aren't buying it. You know, this water, I've been drinking it all my life. It's not done me any harm. What would you say?
How well do you feel?
Well, to be fair, my mom, right, she's 83. She's fucking brilliant. Um, she's got all the faculties. She walks everywhere. She looks 10 years younger than she is. Although I will say I'm noticing a bit of a change now, but I do wonder what might have created that. It's not just the water, but and also she's 83,
Yeah.
you know, things do change.
Yes.
I get that. But my mum's a bad example because she's healthy. You know, for people like we know Alzheimer's and dementia's gone through the roof and various other diseases. Do you believe that fluoride is contributing to that?
It and other things, of course, yes. It certainly sets our bodies up for chronic ill health. Oh, we know that it tends to change the structure, the architecture of our bones, making them denser but more weak. And there's definitely 50% more hip fractures in fluoridated elderly women compared to non-fluoridated elderly women.
Right.
When you look at diabetes, we can see it's just exploding everywhere. I have no statistics about it being higher in West Midlands than anywhere else, and I really must get going and looking at that. But the one thing I'm really concerned about is hypothyroidism. That is caused by, as you know, fluoride displacing iodide in the thyroid gland and throughout the endocrine system. And it's not just the paired glands, organs going up the body, there's so many of them. It's the skin as well. The skin is an endocrine organ. And we look at the research of Peckham 2014. He and his team mapped the diagnosis of hypothyroidism against fluoridation status. And they came up with a statistic of almost double the amount of hypothyroidism in fluoridated West Midlands compared to non-fluoridated Greater Manchester. And throughout England, 30% more hypothyroidism in fluoridated England compared to non-fluoridated England. That's a huge expansion. And you also have to look at the fluoridation maps of Ireland. The Southern Ireland Republic is fluoridated and Northern Ireland isn't. It's a wonderful, wonderful way to be able to contrast. Yeah. And as far as I can see, poor Ireland is the sick man of Europe. They have so much wrong with them. Perhaps you might say their diet is a little bit sort of lacking in certain things, but you can't really do a broad brush like that because the Irish grow some wonderful food and they should be well nourished. They don't just eat potatoes and cabbage anymore, as it were.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously when you came and did that talk a few weeks ago, there was a reason why you're out and about. So what is that reason that you're trying to get the message out on at the moment?
All right. So as I said earlier, the only way we're going to get fluoride out of our drinking water is to challenge the government in a legal process. The first stage of the legal process is to send a letter before action to the government solicitors department. And in that letter, our barrister will will list so many points of law which the solicitors have to answer, and they have to do it within a certain length of time. And then when we get their reply back, we'll see whether in fact we then have to go out guns blazing and take the government to court. Right, to do the letter before action, it's made much, much stronger if we have lots of people who are against fluoridation to append their name to the end of the letter so that the solicitors will take the letter more seriously. I mean, they should take it seriously from one claimant and one barrister. But, you know, with hundreds of people saying we don't want to become fluoridated or we want you to stop fluoridating us, that will make the letter so much stronger. And that's why I came to talk to you guys. I had a really good response. Once I've processed the names and made sure that the postcodes are either fluoridated or threatened, then I'm asking people to meet our barrister on a Zoom meeting. This barrister has actually had thousands on one Zoom meeting. Can you imagine it?
Mm.
Oh,
Wow.
but she has, because she was involved with the Jobs Not Jabs.
Excuse me, jobs, not jabs.
Yeah,
Right, okay.
and there's thousands and thousands of NHS employees involved with that. So this is what we're doing. We're just saying, look, you know, so many people out there now know, despite the media blackout, there's so many people are now awake and aware of what's going on in their lives, and what is actually attacking their health. And it's not all accidental, it is promoted by, dare I say, by the NHS,
Yeah.
which is really bad news. Why would the NHS try and make us ill? Because it's going to cost them more money to cure us, or, sorry, hide the symptoms.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm here for. We need people who are threatened with fluoridation, and that's growing actually, because the directors of public health throughout England have got, how can I say, an instruction from the establishment to talk to councils, especially county councils, to persuade them to ask the Department of Health to go out to public consultation. And because the county councils know nothing about fluoridation, they are just going along with the advice from the directors of public health. It's just what goes round goes round. At the moment, I can just list them now. Cornwall is threatened with public consultation. Worcestershire, Rutland, Norfolk, Greater London, the fringes of Nottinghamshire, which they may get the water from Nottinghamshire. Nottinghamshire is threatened. Nottingham City is threatened. Leicester City has voted to ask for a public consultation. And this goes to the fringes around Nottinghamshire County Council, which I've just stated. If they get the water from Nottinghamshire, then they will be given fluoridation as collateral damage. So, so that'll be Leicestershire, Derbyshire, and Lincolnshire, the fringes bordering Nottinghamshire. Now, when it comes to the northeast, they are still threatened, definitely, because they have been approved for fluoridation. And that goes right across from the northeast Cumbrian border, where there's two communities called Alston and Nented, which are collateral damage. They get their water from Northumberland Water. Then you go down the valley through County Durham, across to Sunderland, South Tyneside, up through Northumberland, parts of which are already fluoridated. Then you go down a little to Darlington, Stockton-on-Tees, Middlesbrough, Redcar with Cleveland. And then there's some valleys, villages on the North Yorkshire border, which also get their water from Northumberland Water. And these are villages which are mainly in Rishi Sunak's constituency. He never told anybody that they were going to be getting a public consultation. So when we went down there to have a look at the villages and, you know, talk to people, we found that nobody knew anything about it. It was poorly publicised by the Northern Echo.
Well, we know it's by design anyway,
Absolutely,
so people don't know.
Yeah.
So in terms of what has just been approved, were there many local people that opposed it?
We have no idea because it all went into a big melting pot in the Department of Health, and they came out about 6 months later with a decision.
But you didn't sort of go up and rally the troops and say, sign here, and you got 10,000 signatures or whatever. That
What,
didn't happen.
1.6 million people? How on earth do you get hold of
I'm
people?
just asking.
Well, we tried our absolute best, but you know something? In the fluoridated areas of the northeast, and there are some, quite a few, it was just, ugh. They're just, as they are here, pineal gland
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
calcification,
yeah,
really.
yeah.
We found a lovely group in Cramlington in Newcastle, and they were all up for it. They were angry. But 100 people is not 1.6 million people.
No,
We tried our absolute best to find civil society groups. Couldn't find any.
doesn't exist.
No, it's very, very strange.
So, in terms of what you guys are trying to do now, and I've been on a couple of the calls as well. So, you've got this wonderful barrister that's clearly a good person that is taking on the disadvantaged and can see the wrong that's going on in life in different areas. And so, she's taken this on. And what you're trying to do, Joy, and I don't know how many Joys there are involved in this because you're only a one woman show. Is there
No,
many Joys dotted around?
yes, we have an alliance, we have a network.
Yeah,
And yes, I'm spreading the work out now.
yeah, yeah. Good. So, but what you're trying to do is obviously build a bit of a movement here and obviously get the word out there at how bad fluoride is, and we want it taken out of our water. And as you quite rightly said, you won't pay for your water. How long have you not been paying for your water?
This is my 5th year coming up.
And have they ever threatened court or anything like
Oh,
that?
yeah.
And what happens?
I just say, well, you're not giving me drinking water. Why should I pay for it? I'll see you in court and I'll countersue
Yeah. And then you don't hear anything.
until the start of the
New
new
year,
financial
then
year.
they send you a bill.
Yeah. And then we start again.
Yeah, I also don't pay my water. But I haven't been doing it for 5 years. Um, but so okay. So one thing would be people is everybody stops paying their water, but that would be also the same with council tax, and because of the council tax hikes that are going to be happening in a lot of people's areas this year, it's incentivizing people to stop paying their council tax. And I've noticed that the water has gone up because I have a couple of rental properties, and I'm like, hang on a minute, it's almost doubled in the last 3 years. How
Mm.
how are they justifying that? Well, they're justifying it because people have stopped paying their water and they need to get their money somehow, I'm assuming. And then they'll give you some bullshit reasons as well. But so one thing we can all do is stop paying our water. So if you're still paying your water, stop. If you're still drinking tap water and you're watching this video, this podcast, I'd be surprised. But if you are, then know that fluoride and everything else that's in the water is really bad for your health, and it's time to get a distiller or some kind of water filtration system in your house or on your taps or whatever. And then what we can all do is we can join this movement. So
Mhm.
how do we do that, Joy?
Right. Everybody who wants to stop fluoridation now and in the future, and to get the government to just go away into a corner and forget about it, they have to email me, and that's the first part of the process. My email address is wmaf@live.co.uk. wmaf@live.co.uk. I will ask you for your full name, your postcode, your email address, of course, I'll have already, and the name of your water company. And then I'll decide whether you are eligible to join me in this class action. We're calling it a group challenge as opposed to a class action. So everybody in the group will be able to say to the government, I approve of the wording of this letter from the barrister. Please reply to it. That's the first stage. We need to get everybody together in a Zoom meeting to meet the barrister because that's a legal requirement. And she has to sign a contract with you, which will cost £24, including VAT. That will that contract will last until you receive a reply from the government solicitors. We're just hoping to get thousands of people appending their names to the end of this letter. It's important we get a lot of people because it's just basically strength in numbers. We need to be showing that we're a force to be reckoned with, despite the government's artificial clamping down of national media on this. And this very interesting thing happened yesterday. We found government has asked the BBC World Service to put out a really slanted short program on the radio on fluoridation. And I'd say we could probably say there are about 12 lies in what they're saying. And they're skating over things like reduced intelligence. And they're saying there's no proof whatsoever. There's a determination by the government to continue this policy, come hell or high water, and it doesn't make sense anymore. So if everybody wanted to, first of all, have a look at the website to see what we're saying about fluoridation and then get to me by email, that would be brilliant. And then we can proceed from there.
And what is your website?
This is where things get complicated. I'm Fluoride Free Alliance UK. I'm the national coordinator, but I never changed the URL of the website. So it's ukfffa.org.uk. But they don't need to go onto the website immediately. Just email me, tell me you're interested, and I will send you back the link to the website.
Yeah.
It's much easier that way.
And I'll put it in the show notes anyway. So there'll be a link below this video that you can click on. So what's next in terms of, because I've been on a couple of calls and I didn't get notified about the last one for whatever reason, so I didn't go on to that. But how close are we to getting the contracts that we have to put our name to?
Yes, I've asked them to start sending them out now as opposed to waiting until the end of the process.
Yeah.
We're hoping to get everything tied up by middle of April. This only gives us 2 more Zoom meetings. The Zoom meetings is not a series of meetings, it's just one-offs in a series. And each one are there so that the barrister can meet the claimants.
That's basically what it's about.
Yeah.
And there's a bit of education on there as well.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, if anybody is watching or listening that this totally resonates for, and I would imagine it's most of my audience, because you're all amazing people, you're all sticking your fingers up to the system, and you're all looking for ways that you can improve your life, improve your health, and also get these fuckers off our back. Excuse my French. I know people sometimes moan about my swearing, but literally we're dealing with satanic arseholes. And when it comes to poisoning the water for everybody, as well as other ways that they're doing it as well, it has to stop. And what we didn't actually, I don't think you were specific enough. I don't know whether we skirted over it a little bit. Why do you believe the government are hell bent on putting fluoride in the water?
Right. Well, as I say, it took me years to come to the realization. And it was only when I read a book by Kevin Galilei, who was a professor of the population studies in Australia, I think it's Melbourne, that I realized this is what it's all about. The Western advanced countries like America, Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand, have all been given their marching orders at Davos to try and reduce the population.
Ah,
Now, although it doesn't kill us, it makes us ill before our time, apart from your mum.
yeah. She's unbelievable.
Lovely. She always had strong bones,
Yeah.
very strong bones. It doesn't kill us before our time, but it makes us ill before our time, which is really sad. I have to say now, I'm not a young lady, and I've got really good health.
Mm.
I have really good health. I've no chronic problems at all, because I've been looking after my water intake, as it were. Right. So at Davos, they've been told the only way you're going to do it is to reduce the population by keep on fluoridating your population, because that's going to reduce the births, and it does actually affect fertility, especially, I hate to say this, it does affect the black population more than it does the white population,
Do we know why?
different genotype.
Right.
And also, they don't get as much sun as they should do. That's my thoughts anyway, and possibly may not have all the vitamins and minerals they think they should have. We think they should have, because perhaps in many cases there's not much money going into the families.
Mm.
I shouldn't generalize. I know that, but you have to look at a population-wide picture. But I've heard so many tales of babies born to black women, either dying young, very young, or miscarrying. It's horrible to think of.
Yeah, it is. Right. So that would make sense of why they're still pushing fluoride when originally it was because, we didn't have good high dental hygiene back in the day. And so they had to put it in the water because us plebs didn't know how to clean our teeth properly. And now it's because parents aren't brushing little children's teeth. Okay, whatever. I guess that's true sometimes, but I'm sure that's not a huge thing. But it still doesn't justify fluoridating the whole population because a few people don't brush their kids' teeth. So now it's part of the agenda that we're all well aware of, which makes sense, and it makes sense of why they're now putting it into areas when we're supposed to be a lot more advanced. And we all have a dentist. Well, most people would go to the dentist from time to time, even though I've not been for years, because it just makes no sense. But that makes sense.
The thing is that the NHS dentists are reducing in number. Poorer families can't afford to go to private dentists, and this is a good way of trying to how can I say, exonerate themselves from not being able to provide a good NHS dental service by saying, "Oh, we can't give you a dentist, but we can give you fluoride in the water," and it's brilliant.
Yeah.
That's not the only thing, of course. To begin with, it was to get rid of the aluminium waste. Then it was to try and reduce dental decay. Then a few more reasons came along, and oh yes, they got rid of all the phosphate fertilizer waste, which is really good for the environment. And then we've got this thing about oh, it's still okay, even though it's only reducing it by 2 or 3%. The ground is shifting under the pro-fluoridationists, but it's not. I'm still not convinced by them, and I was astounded yesterday when I listened to the World Service, BBC World Service, telling all the lies on that broadcast. It was abysmal, abysmal.
Please tell me you only listen to it because of that broadcast and you
Yes,
don't normally listen to the BBC.
pointed it out today.
Good. Um, okay, right. So we know how important this is, people. We need to stop these um beeps killing us in another way, right? And we need to protect the people that haven't had to have this. And now of all of a sudden they're going to have it in their water. So, and the only way we're going to do that, as Joy quite rightly says, is growing the numbers. And the only way we can grow the numbers is if you take some action. And it's not a lot. It's basically a couple of Zooms and signing a contract and keeping yourself up to date with what's going on with the class action. We're all quick to do it. Like I'm part of the Mercedes emissions thing. I thought, well, why not? I'll put my name to it, because I might get some money out of it, and that will incentivize people to do it, because there's going to be money at the end. This is priceless. This is your health. This is the world's health. And unfortunately, we don't put enough priority on that, stupidly enough. But it's kind of how we've been programmed. Is there anything, Joy, that I haven't asked you or that you haven't been able to talk about that's important?
Right. One thing I do need to emphasize is that it's medically unethical to force people to take medicine in their drinking water, because the drinking water is no longer drinking water, it's medicinal water. It does not comply with the drinking water directive. Therefore, we can't be charged for it. But the most important thing is a doctor would never give you medicine 24/7 for the rest of your life, would they? They should review the prescription. They should reduce or increase or give you something different. But we are being told by the Department of Health that we must have this medicine for an entire lifespan. This is why it's so counterintuitive and so absolutely abysmal that any government could do that to its people. And the only reason why they're doing it to us because they have to, because they're told they have to by other authorities elsewhere. I just don't see that Keir Starmer is doing that on his own volition. I am sure that the government is being told by the establishment, and the establishment is being told by someone who we don't know the name of. The big bogey bear.
Yeah.
Well, we can joke, but there's obviously some world force which is saying this has to be done. We have to reduce the population, and fluoridation is going to help us to do it. Right, it might reduce the birth population. I'll try again. It might reduce the birth of children, and that might have a slight knock-on effect. But it's causing a huge amount of expenditure by the NHS, looking after all the old people or middle-aged people with chronic ill health. It's just not worth it.
Well, isn't the NHS about to be abolished in 2 weeks or something?
Oh, part of it is, yes.
So anyway, okay. Yeah, absolutely. I totally concur with everything you've said and everything you've shared. And I hope, this video does as well, as other podcasts have done, because this is, other than the other things that we can't talk about on YouTube because, I'll get a warning and I might get taken down. This is massive, and this affects every single person on this planet. Correction, it doesn't at the moment, but that's what's coming, potentially. But if it's not affecting you directly, it'll be affecting friends, family, etc., etc. So, people, take some action. Are you doing a crowdfunding?
We're trying to get it off the ground, yes.
Right, so you haven't started it.
No, we're accepting donations, and I can give people the back's details if they ask for them.
Okay, so there is a donation process in place to obviously help fund this, because there's going to be a lot of meetings and legal crap that needs to be done to push this forwards, and perhaps a crowdfunding is going to be put into place. If that happens and when that happens, whether it be in a few days or a week or whatever, I will then add it on to the bottom of here. So you can always come back to this podcast if you're interested in helping out in that way, and I'll put a link on there as well. Thank you, Joy. It's just so funny that you live just over there. And this has been an absolute blast, actually, for me to do this in person, because normally it's just on Zoom. And I don't know if you've heard, Joy's phone has been going off time and time again. She's a busy lady and obviously forgot to put it on silent, but that's okay. Is there any final pearls of wisdom before we finish?
Oh, I really think I'm going to stay with this effort until I die. I can't give it up. It's my vocation, and therefore you won't lose me anytime soon.
Healthy and fluoride free.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Joy. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you here.
Oh, thank you, Mel. Thank you.